What is good, YouTube? How is everybody doing? I am R Press, and this is the H-Town Shutdown. Thank you for joining me here on YouTube. I'm sorry, guys. I've got a little busy the past week, and I haven't done a show in a week. So I got a lot of things to catch up with, catch you guys on. Got a lot of news to talk about, specifically H-Town base. The Texans played their first game of the year, week 1, against the Baltimore Ravens. I'll give you my thoughts on that. The Houston Astros, last time I was on, they had taken over first place. They are still in first place, but the up and down Jekyll and Hyde roller coaster season continues. As I speak right now, they have lost 2 games in the series to the Oakland A's at home. The home struggles continue. This team might be the most frustrating Houston Astros team I've seen in this window that they're in since 2015, when they turned the corner and became a credible franchise again. This has got to be the most frustrating team. Also, I'm sure you all heard, we're going to talk about the sad, unfortunate, and flat out ridiculous news on Kevin Porter Jr. of the Houston Rockets, what the future might hold for him and the Rockets, and exactly what this means for the Rockets. So keep it posted here, guys. I got a great show for you. Let's start it off talking about week 1 with the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans traveled on the road to kick off the NFL season 2023. They played Baltimore, the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore, ended up losing 25-9. If you guys see me looking to my right, that's where I have my notes at. So I'll be looking at my notes while I'm talking to kind of give a perspective on what took place in that game. The Ravens, who a lot of people are picking to win the AFC North this year, or in some instances picking to go to the Super Bowl, looked very pedestrian against the Texans, especially on offense. If I'm just being honest. As for the Texans, the defense played a pretty good game, especially in that first half. Couldn't hold them in the second half, especially the third quarter. The third quarter is where the 2 touchdowns occurred, which was the absolute difference in the game. But Jalen Petrie went out of the game with a chest injury. Reportedly, he was coughing up blood after taking that knee to the chest from Lamar Jackson. And I think he had to stay in the hospital overnight for more tests. So not sure if he's going to be okay. Injury report might be out now. I might take a look at it. But, not sure if he's going to be ready to go for week 2 against the Colts. But he left the game. As for the offense, not too much to talk about, really. They were pretty pedestrian themselves. 3 field goals, no touchdowns. Even with that being the final score, I still think Stroud played a pretty good game in his first NFL game. Got to give him credit on the road against Baltimore. He finished 28 of 44, 242 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, but a QBR rating of 78. The offensive line didn't play their best game, didn't look great. Stroud was under stress and under duress the entire game, had to move around the pocket several times. And of course, the running game didn't get going as well. Not all of the offensive line's fault, but, it starts in the trenches, and they weren't great this game against Baltimore. Execution just wasn't what it needed to be. Still a lot of room to grow. As for our running backs, we need more from the running backs. Dameon Pierce, 11 carries, 38 yards. 7 carries for 11 yards for Devin Singletary. That's not going to cut it, especially against the Ravens in a game that was, if we're going to be honest, it was 7-6 at halftime. It was a winnable game. And these are the type of games that when it's that close at halftime and the other team hasn't been doing a lot either, and you've been doing a pretty good job of holding them, these are the games that I'm going to need to see the Texans change the trajectory of the season by winning those games. This was a very winnable game. As I said before, Baltimore was extremely pedestrian in this game. Lamar Jackson only finished with 169 yards passing, no touchdowns. He threw a pick. This game was here for the taking. Now, the only difference was the 2 touchdowns I mentioned on drives in the third quarter, that kind of opened the game up for Baltimore, and the Texans just not being able to put the ball in the end zone. That was the difference in the game. Hopefully they can look at that and make adjustments. Offense just didn't move the sticks, and they just didn't punch it in the end zone when it needed to be. So this was a winnable game. I think that defense is going to be pretty competitive this year. A lot better than what it was last year. Last year, it was just not a competitive defense and not a competitive offense. So I like what I saw from the defense. I like how they made adjustments. And fundamentally they look better than what they did last year. So that was good. That was good to see. So even though it was a loss, I still see some positives. I still see some things that can be corrected. I don't think there's that much of a talent gap this year as there was last year between the Texans and their opponents. And they were able to win 3 games each of the last 2 years when the talent gap was obvious. That the Texans just didn't have enough as much talent as the teams they're facing. So, but the field goals and settling for the field goals, man, that's just if you're a Texan fan, that's kind of been the MO of this franchise since the Bill O'Brien days. Not being able to punch it in the end zone. I remember when we played. I remember when it was the Bill O'Brien days, and it was Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins. They wouldn't punch the ball in the end zone on long drives. It'll be the explosive plays that came far and few in between that they would really punch it in the end zone and get a touchdown on it. But the long sustained drives where you're trying to control the clock and you've had the ball for 6-7 minutes, those all usually always ended up in field goals, and it did it the last couple of years under Cully and under Lovie Smith. So I'm hoping under DeMeco Ryans that change can be made. We'll see. I'm excited about the opportunity. I'm excited about this team's ability, and hopefully that is what. Hopefully that's something we see start to change as the season goes along. So week 1 ended up in a loss. Wasn't great, but week 2 is the home opener, and it's against the Indianapolis Colts. Texans are favored by 1.5 as of on Wednesday. So we'll see. It's a matchup between 2 rookie quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson for the Colts and C.J. Stroud, of course, for the Houston Texans. I will admit Richardson looked a little better than Stroud in his debut, but that was one game. It was against Jacksonville. It was at home, so he did throw an interception. Wasn't a great throw. Wasn't a great decision, but it's a rookie pick. But as far as the ceiling of making big time plays, I think Indianapolis might have, as of right now, a bigger ceiling with their quarterback than what the Texans have in C.J. Stroud. Doesn't mean that I think Richardson is going to be better than Stroud. I think Stroud is going to be, if he stays on course, a pretty good quarterback in this league. Yeah, man, we will see. Just in my opinion, CJ's more polished, but as far as the big strike, big play ability, I think Richardson has that, and I think he showed a little bit of that in the game against Jacksonville, which was a competitive game that they were leading and just lost in the end. They were leading that game and into the third quarter, into the fourth quarter, and Jacksonville came back and got them. So I think if you're a Colt fan, you saw some things that you liked, and this game is going to be pretty interesting to see which rookie QB is going to look better in their second game as pros and their first matchup against each other. This is the quarterback that CJ is going to be compared to, along with Bryce Young, but this one specifically because they're in the same division. He's going to be compared to Richardson for the rest of his career. So I think that alone will get them pumped up. I like the opportunity. I think the Texans defense played pretty well. So now against a rookie quarterback, let's see what they're able to do. As far as the Colts defense, I thought they looked pretty good as well against Jacksonville until they didn't towards the end of the game. But they'll have a chance at a rookie quarterback themselves. So I think it's going to be a competitive game. I think it's going to be a glimpse into the future of this division, and we'll see who wins. Texans, as I mentioned, are favorite going in, 1.5 point favorite. So that's pretty much a give. That's pretty much a pick 'em, and I think that's appropriate for this game and for these two teams. But the home field advantage should do something for the Texans. Looking forward to week 2. Shout out to some of these. I want to give a shout out to some of the players that I thought played very good games on Sunday. Denzel Perryman was everywhere, man, making tackles everywhere. He's showing that he's an elite linebacker in this league. Derek Stingley Jr., he played a really good game at corner, man, and got tested a couple times and passed the test each time he did. Stingley looking pretty good, looking what many thought he would look like coming out of LSU. Steven Anderson, the other corner, had a good game as well, had an interception that stopped a potential scoring drive there. Loved it. And of course, Will Anderson, the rookie, he flashed a few times. I love seeing that, getting pressure on the quarterback, making a couple of solo tackles as well. I like what I see from the defense, man. I named players from every level that made an impact. So I'm excited to see how they're going to gel together. Finally, my thoughts on DeMeco Ryans. Not a bad debut at all. Situational football, especially in the red zone, can be improved offensively. We had to settle for field goals. I think that's going to come in time. We got a rookie quarterback. So I think that's going to come. He's building a rapport with the receiving core. So if he had a little bit more help from the offensive line and the running game, I thought that game could have been a little bit closer and be really. The score doesn't indicate how competitive the game was. I thought if the running backs did a little bit more, the score would probably be more indicative of how competitive that game was. Look for that to happen this week. But as far as DeMeco Ryans, no, I like what I saw. I thought he had his team ready to play. I just think that the offense needs improving, and I think that they will be able to get there throughout the season. So a good, you never like to take a loss, and you don't want to say that there's a good loss or good things in the loss, but in reality, there are, especially for a team that's rebuilding, there are good things that come in games that you might end up on a losing end of, that you could take and say, let's see what happens as we progress on in the season. I think that's where the Texans are, not too high and not too low about the game. It was a winnable game, and I think more of those games will present themselves this season. We'll see how they respond going forward. All in all, to wrap this up, it was a loss and a very, very winnable game. But, I think Texan fans should be hopeful that changes will come, and we'll see the progression of Stroud and this offense during the year, and his coaching staff during the year. We got a rookie coach, brand new coaching staff. So keep that in mind while we're examining this team. But I think I think that we saw some good things that we can build upon. The potential is definitely there. All right. Now let's move on to the Houston Astros, the defending champs. Last time I spoke to you guys, it was a week ago, and the Astros were in the middle of sweeping the Texas Rangers in epic fashion, blowing them out in each and every game of the 3-game series, and ultimately scoring 39 runs to Texas's 11 or 10 runs. Altuve, Abreu, Bregman, Alvarez, Diaz, Brantley, everybody was getting in on action. Everybody was getting hits. Dubon, Jeremy Pena, everybody was a part. Kyle Tucker, everybody was in on it. It was Maldonado, everybody was in on it in that series. And we left that series taking over the number 1 spot and pretty much looking like Texas was going to get buried after that series because it wasn't even competitive. The season series went to the Astros. The tiebreaker goes to the Astros, and they were flying high back at home. Well, going home hasn't been great for the Astros this year. And Friday night came. The San Diego Padres came into town, a team that has been underachieving the entire year. They're 10 under coming into that series. And they blow the Houston Astros out 11-2 in the first game of the series. Same old Astros struggling at home. This has got to be one of the greatest mysteries in sports right now. I don't understand why this team doesn't have a home field advantage and just cannot put it together at home. But on the road, they're world beaters. I mean, if you're going to win a division, that means you're going to have home games. You're going to have home field advantage. That's the benefit of winning a division, at least in 1 or 2 rounds. You're going to be at home. If you can't win at home, what's the point in winning a division? And not only that, getting shellacked at home. So that happened, right? Friday night. And then Saturday happens. They start off slow again, but then they turn it on and they beat the Padres in that game by an offensive explosion. And then Sunday it was an even bigger offensive explosion at home to win the series, beat the Padres 12-2, I believe, in that game. So 12-3. So the offense seems like we're turning a corner. After the embarrassing loss on Friday at home, we're turning the corner, and 2 offensive explosions happen and looking a little better at home, winning the Padres series. We got the Oakland A's coming in for 3 games at home. All seem to look okay. Monday comes, Oakland A's come to town, a team that's been struggling this year. They're 1 loss away from hitting 100 losses on the year, and they come and they shut the Astros out in the first game of the series, 4-0. Valdez pitched a pretty good game. The offense just did not show up per usual at home with this Jekyll and Hyde team. To make it even worse, last night, Tuesday, Verlander on the mound. So Valdez was on the mound Monday, Verlander on the mound Tuesday. Oakland punishes Justin Verlander, and they win the game, 6-2 yesterday. So Oakland has won the series here, and they're up for a sweep of the Astros. They swept the Astros last year, too, in September, as we were headed into the end of the season. But, man, this is very frustrating for Astro fans because you're looking at the schedule, and it looks to be easing up. But in all reality, it's not easing up for the Houston Astros. They play down the competition, and they play bad at home. So you can't really assume that the schedule is going to ease up for you. So with these 2 losses, meanwhile, Texas wins 4 straight after losing their first to Oakland. So they got swept by the Astros and then played a 3-game series with the Oakland A's over the weekend, lost the first game, but won the next 2. And they were trailing in all 3 games. Won the next 2, and they go on to an important 4-game series with the Toronto Blue Jays, a team that we're all competing with for the wild card. We, meaning everybody in the American League West, is competing for the division, and they're competing with Toronto currently for the wild card spot. And Texas goes and wins the first 2 games on the road to at least have a split in this series, knocking the Blue Jays on the outside looking in. Meanwhile, the Seattle Mariners lost 3 or 4 to the Tampa Bay Rays over the weekend. Had fallen at least 2.5 games back of the Astros. They lost the first game, so they had lost 4 straight games. They lost the first game against the LA Angels in this series, and they won last night in pretty dominating fashion. So the rubber game is today for the Mariners and the Angels. So as we speak right now, the Houston Astros are 1 game ahead of the Texas Rangers for the division and a game and a half ahead of the Seattle Mariners for the division. This was supposed to be the series that you started to create some separation. This was supposed to be the series that you go and you win this series. You're supposed to sweep this series, but win the series 2-1 would have been beneficial. And now you're on the brink of getting swept by the Oakland A's, second worst team in the league. You're about to go face the worst team in the league this weekend after this series in Kansas City. It's on the road, so I feel a little bit better about that. But who's to say that this doesn't continue? They're in their Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde mode. So who knows who shows up? Who knows who's going to show up tonight? But this has been very frustrating, which is why it's hard to see this team repeat as champions. I mean, you see flashes of it. If the offense does what it did this past weekend, what it did last week against Texas, what it's done the last few road games has been the last 10, 12 road games where they've been world beaters. If it does that, this team's going to be hard to beat. But if it plays the way that it's played against the New York Yankees, where they swept them at home, against the San Diego Padres at home, where the San Diego Padres won the first game and was threatening to win the second game, or these 2 losses to the Oakland A's, this team would be a first-round exit if they even make the playoffs. And this is how close this division is, and this is how close this wild card race is. Going into Monday, Texas was on the outside looking in. Seattle was 5th seed of the wild card race, and Toronto was the 4th seed. Seattle was the 5th seed going into this Monday. Well, Texas flipped it and knocked both of them down, and Seattle flipped it with Toronto. So now Toronto's on the outside looking in. Seattle's in the 6th spot of the wild card. Texas is in the 5th spot of the wild card. And this is how close and how close this race is going to be down the stretch. And if you're the Astros, you have to create separation, because not only are you competing for the division with 2 teams who aren't going away. We thought we buried the Rangers, and they're back. They're 1 game behind us. Seattle, you know that they've been going through a rough stretch, but they're still just a game and a half back. And you can't forget about Toronto. You don't have who's in the wild card race, who's also a game and a half back behind you. You don't have games to give away, and they've given away so many games this year, guys. So many games. In June, it was a plethora of games they gave away. St. Louis, the Washington Nationals, 2 against the Giants, the sweep against the Cincinnati Reds. Those are all National League teams. The Minnesota series, where they gave away games back in May. Detroit early on. The Detroit a few weeks ago, the first game gave it away. The Padres game gave it away. 2 against the Yankees in New York, and then all 3 here in Houston dropped against the Yankees. Just gave them away. They've given away so many games this year, man. This is really, really just a baffling, frustrating team, man. You don't know what you're gonna get. You don't know what you're gonna get. Now, I will say, it's must-see TV in this last month of the season, and it's gonna go right down to the end. I cannot wait for the series, the last 3 series for the American League West, where the Mariners have to go Rangers, Astros, Rangers to finish their season. That's going to determine their season. Toronto losing these first 2 against the Texas Rangers now, and having to, they got 2 more against them. They got to salvage that series in order to stay in this race. They got to salvage it. It's very entertaining. The Seattle Mariners, you were just on the outside looking in, then you made a run. You were leading the division. Now you're back. You were just back on the outside looking in. Now you're back in the playoff picture. It's just going up and down day to day, and it's very entertaining. So I just don't believe that the Astros can afford to be giving games away. Let me just say this. I got to give the Oakland A's credit. This looked like a different team than the one that we've been seeing the entire year, these first 2 games. And I have to say, I watched them against the Rangers. Very competitive there. They won the first game. So you got to give the A's credit. They're coming in. They're like, listen, man, this ain't going to be a rollover. You're going to have to earn these games. And the Astros just haven't earned anything, especially at home. It's like they sleepwalk at home. And then when they get on the road, then that's when they become a team that you're like, okay, this is a team that can win the World Series. That home team cannot win the World Series. I'm sorry. I've seen enough of it. They're 37-37 at home. If that team shows up, there's no way on earth they're winning a World Series. The team that's been on the road the past month, that team can compete and win a World Series. But who's going to show up? And is it really just that simple that Minute Maid is the kryptonite this year and the road is where it's at this year? Is it really that simple? Very frustrating, man. Tonight they have the final game against the Oakland A's to avoid the sweep. Just flat out pathetic. Then they're back on the road against the Kansas City Royals for 3 this weekend. Then they're back at home playing the Baltimore Orioles next week. And the following week, they'll be at home against the same Kansas City Royals team. This was supposed to be the run where, the Orioles, okay, that's going to be a tough series. But this was supposed to be that stretch where you can create some separation. And instead, they're falling right back into the Petri dish that is the American League West and the American League wild card race. So I don't know what to say. Hopefully they can turn it around tonight and at least not get swept in this series. I mean, Oakland's already won the series, so at least not get swept in this series and move on to Kansas City. And hopefully we can salvage the past couple of days, man. Been completely disappointing, but that's the Astros update. Still in the lead of the American League West, but it's a 1-game lead. And the way Texas has been playing past few games, Toronto losing both games at home, nothing's guaranteed, man. So we'll see what happens there. Lastly, guys, I want to talk about briefly the Kevin Porter Jr. situation, Houston Rockets guard, where he has been arrested, charged with domestic abuse of his girlfriend. She's a former WNBA player. Beautiful young lady, really beautiful young lady. And this, the more that comes out, the worse that it sounds. First, it was, he was arrested for domestic abuse, and the details came out that, she had bruises on her face. He had fractured her vertebrae, her neck area. And today I saw, I don't know if it's true or not, but allegedly she was asleep when he attacked her. I don't know about you guys, but that is just inexcusable, unacceptable. And if proven to be true, he shouldn't be able to play. Not only should he not be able to play in the NBA, he shouldn't be walking around the streets. He should be in jail. He should be locked up for that. That is egregious. Egregious. That's egregious to do that to anybody, but a woman, and a woman that you apparently claim to love and be in a relationship with, absolutely disgusting. So that's my thoughts on that. If proven to be true, he needs to be in jail, and being an NBA player would be the least of his worries. Now, as this goes, this is a local player here in Houston for a Rockets team that is looking to begin a rebuild this year and actually be a little competitive this year. And apparently he was a part of the plans. But I think now that it's pretty much a guarantee he's not going to play this year. Where do the Rockets go from here? I know that the free agent pickups with Brooks and Van Vliet were veteran help and really bolstered the backcourt, but Porter Jr. was a part of that backcourt, and now you're going to miss that. So who's going to fill that void? Can Jalen Green take that next step? Will he be able to take that next step? What is his playing time going to look like? I don't even know. Was Porter Jr. going to start on this team? It's early. It's September. I don't think training camp starts until the end of this month. And you can, like I said, you can pretty much guarantee Porter Jr. won't be there. But man, this has to be a unwanted distraction. And when the Rockets took a chance on him, a guy with a troubled past, a guy with a rough upbringing, a guy who had locker room issues in Cleveland, a guy who had run-ins with legal issues in Cleveland. He's only 23 years old, but maturity didn't seem to be a part of his repertoire. Even with the way that they played him and Green, it was very immature, jacking up shots, not playing defense. There wasn't really a step of evolving taking place there. And with this young team, we needed a veteran presence. We needed a coach who's going to hold them accountable, like Udoka. The last coach apparently had no business coaching and really had no business coaching a young team like that. He wasn't holding anybody accountable. But with that being said, man, Rockets fans, tell me your thoughts. What do you think? How do you think this affects the Rockets? Do you think it has any effect at all? Was Porter Jr. that important to what was going to be the Rockets 23 and 24 season? I would like to know your thoughts in the comments. And, also we got Dylan Brooks, who's been in the news lately. I guess I haven't been watching, but Canada got third place, beating the United States in the third place game of the FIBA World Cup. So maybe that gives Brooks a little bit of boost, because the way he went out in Memphis, I got to admit, I was not excited about that signing. Didn't seem like a guy that was really going to help. But, we'll see what happens. It's kind of too early to tell what's going to take place with the Houston Rockets. But that was major news with Porter Jr., that this is an H-Town podcast, and we're not afraid to talk about any of that, especially when it affects any of the three major sports teams here in Houston. So, but I would like to know you guys' thoughts. How do you think this Porter Jr. Legal issue affects the Houston Rockets this year? Give me your thoughts, and let me know what you think. Well, guys, that's all I got for you today. I appreciate you tuning in to the H-Town Shutdown with your boy, R Press. And until the next episode, I'll holla at you. Peace.